that you are here live and actually already giving me good advice, Larry Minsky. Well, hello. Wait, there you go. Good advice. And so I just kicked him out. I'm just kidding. Well, hello, and welcome to Intercultural Spark, that show about the spark inside each of us that sparks you to drive. Oh, that's my timer. Shows up. Okay, just kidding. That sparks you, or that drives you to spark change in your businesses and life projects. Each week, we talk to each guest with a special curiosity on how they do what they do, how they bring their ideas to life, or in the case of today's guest, how he does so much and how he choreographs this really rich career with so many different parts. So I'm your host, Deanna Schaas. I'm the founder of Intercultural Talk, and I am thankful for everyone who's joining us today, whether you're here or after the fact. And our guest today is Larry Minsky. He is an associate professor at Columbia College Chicago. He's an accomplished marketing consultant who has worked with major global brands around the globe, and he's authored like 9 books. So today we're going to find out how he does it all and how he does it all so successfully. So welcome, Larry, to Intercultural Spark. Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So really appreciate it. And I'm looking at that bookcase behind you. Like, can I get one of those, even if the awards aren't mine? Just flip up for a minute. Show everyone how tall that goes. It's like floor to ceiling awards. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So thanks for sharing that. So we're talking today about how to stay relevant by staying current. But my question for you, and I think a lot of my viewers are people that are perhaps non-digital natives or kind of in their second careers. What does it look like to you? Like, how do you define staying relevant? What does that look like to you?
Well, I was thinking about this morning. I don't know if I've ever been relevant, because relevancy is by other people, saying that you have something to contribute. Where I focus is, how do I stay current? How do I stay up to date? How do I understand what's going on in the world today and figure out what's going to go on in the world tomorrow for marketing?
Mhm.
If that makes
Well,
sense.
Well, it does. Well, actually, it does make sense, because I think about that sometimes. When you're younger, you feel like you're always, quote, relevant, just because it's so easy when you're younger, maybe because we're out in the world more, but to stay current on trends, pop culture, all those things. Do you find it more challenging as you age? And what are some of the things that you do then to stay current?
Um, well, one of the things to do is just check out what's being released on streaming services, what's being released on for both audio and video, like Spotify and such like that. One of the ways I stay current is my students. They bring in the new
Mm.
artists and the performers and people they like, and I check them out too. And some I like, and some I don't, and that keeps me up to date as well.
Mhm. Does it happen naturally, or do you have to ask them about some of their
Oh,
interests or
oh,
what's going on in their
oh,
lives? Yeah.
yeah.
So.
Sometimes they bring it up, and sometimes I say, "So who do you listen to?" It depends on the situation.
Mhm. I know with COVID, we have our 20-year-old son living back at home. So I definitely know when I've gotten something wrong in terms of not being current or relevant. Like if I say something, my son will be like, "Yeah, not so much." Although he's not necessarily always as giving of what is current. But I like the idea. And then do you subscribe to any sorts of things when you talk about like what's coming new on Spotify? Or I guess most services probably have something that says, "Here's what's new this week."
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I check those things out, and it's my job as a marketer to figure out where things are going and to actually help, whether it happens or not, shape it in a sense. You take what's going on out there. So I'm always been interested in that.
Mhm. Well, some things actually, speaking of what's going on today, I'm thinking about how people build a career, and particularly in marketing. Marketing has gotten so segmented. Like, you can do, research marketing, internet marketing, and there's names for each thing. And so in a lot of cases, people have become extremely specialized. Now, you actually sort of do it all. So how do you see the interplay of teaching and consulting and writing as a way to build a cohesive career?
Well, they all inform each other, right? So my teaching, I am teaching what I'm learning about on my research for my writing, and I'm teaching what I'm learning about through my consulting and what the issues are of my clients. And my clients want me to bring in my uh, newer stuff, which is my research and my teaching, and so it all works together. And my consulting or my questions from my teaching inform where I go with my research. Yeah, because they're raising issues. I recently co-authored an article, and you said authored books, and one of the ways to do it all is to have a lot of collaborators.
Mhm.
Collaboration, you cut your work way, way down. I've had a conversation with my students about this today. It doesn't cut it, if you collaborate with one other person, it doesn't cut it in half because there's mud in the system, but it really does cut it down. And you learn. And one of my former uh, colleagues who have since passed away used to talk about creating a genius. I bring in my strength, you bring in your strength, you bring in your knowledge, I bring in my knowledge, I bring in my skills, you bring in your skills. We work together and we create a genius because we balance each other out. If you bring in somebody who has the
Mm.
same background, the same skill set, and the same knowledge as everyone else, as you have, if you bring someone else like that, then that's when things go wrong. And that's what a lot of people do, is they look for people who are like them.
Oh, who are like them. So how do you go about setting up those partnerships? Do you actually look for someone who's just the opposite of you, or do these opportunities come to you? Because it seems like it would be more fun to work on a project with someone else as well.
Both.
Mhm.
You talk to people and you say, "Hey, doesn't this sound interesting?" You bring in your knowledge, I bring in mine, and we'll create something.
Mhm.
So that's it happens organically a lot of times.
Mhm. I'm
Everything
just
seems to build off each other. I was going down the path. I just wrote an article with a colleague of mine uh, that was published by the Business Review.
Mhm.
At over lunch, we were I was talking about my frustrations with what is called the SWOT analysis in terms of how students are executing it and how it's used in business world. It's one of the most popular tools, but it's poorly
Mhm.
executed. And then at the same time, he was talking about his frustrations, and we were battling around how to do it right and where we thought, and that resulted in an article that's
Mhm. And when you're using SWOT, that's still in the traditional way of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Is that what you're referring
yeah,
to?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the SWOT analysis. But
Mhm.
most people do it wrong because they start with their strengths and weaknesses, which is very internal, and you can't really figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are until you understand the external, which is the threats and opportunities. And
Oh,
most
interesting.
people
Then how you can respond to that. That
yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
and most people look at the opportunities as recommendations as opposed to what's really going on in the world, and then based on your strengths and weaknesses, then you could really convert them
Mhm.
to
But I think that's hard, though. The idea of, when you say they look at that as like, okay, here's our list of things to do.
Mm.
How do you prioritize, though, knowing, let's say you're looking at those opportunities in the world right now, there are a gazillion things to do in the world. Like, there's no way you could ever run out of things to do to market your business. How do you prioritize or figure out what is the right thing in your situation?
For me, I find what is the most interesting, and then
Hmm.
when I have a client, and when I
Mhm.
have a book project, it's a deadline that helps me prioritize.
Oh,
Mhm.
you know, um,
Always mud in the system too, so it's never easy.
Mhm, mhm. One of the things that the descriptions of your books or like reviews of your books often say is how deeply researched they are. So it sounds like research is a really big thing for you. I'm curious and I'm smiling because those darn marketers, when I'll read and find out things like orange juice for breakfast or scrambled eggs, that those were all just marketing campaigns that became just sort of facts of facts of our life. And one of your books, you went all the way back through sort of a history of advertising. Is there any of those kinds of things that we take for truth in our current society that you were able to trace? Like, what's one that surprised you that was actually a marketing initiative?
I don't know if any of them surprised me. They make sense. How do you they had too many oranges. So how do you get rid of them profitably? Squeeze them, get people to drink orange juice, which is everyone thinks is healthy, but it's really, juice is not as healthy as eating the actual piece of fruit. How do baking soda, it sits in your refrigerator and people forget to replace it. How do you get people to replace it? Well, tell them to pour it down your drain,
Yeah, but how did they even get people to buy baking soda just to sit in their fridge in the first place? I mean, that's marketing.
Well,
Otherwise, why
right?
would you buy? Like, we will buy like 4 boxes of baking powder because you need 1 for baking, 2 for the fridge, 1 for brushing your teeth. That
It
is
solved the problem. It got rid of the odors in the refrigerator. Otherwise, you have odors. So, products do solve problems. Brands solve problems. And then they become a brand because we take it for granted that it actually is doing what it promises to do. When it stops promising to do that, then, it goes away. So all advertising is telling people about it. It's to get people to try it more or to try it for the first time. Use it more or try it. So that's all we do, right? It's a very simple kind of thing, very simple goal. And if the product isn't relevant anymore, then it goes away. Typewriters went away. Some people probably still like typing.
I actually have a friend who just opened a gallery on Cherokee Street in St. Louis. It's a typewriter museum because apparently Tom Hanks is a big typewriter friend. But I will say, nobody has asked me asked to pay me $1 a page to type their papers in years. That job went out a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. So creative destruction happens with a lot of things, and products become unrelevant. Sometimes you have to reinvent the product to make it relevant. So,
which also then is part of marketing. That was thanks. Nancy's here, who's a fellow. We're all high school alums. It's our friend Louise who opened the gallery in St. Louis. So good to see you, Nancy and Stephanie, and everyone else who's here. So about being, here's why I keep going back to relevant. And I keep asking the same question another way, because as a as someone who's actually, non-digital native born, there is that fear of like how to stay relevant. And I feel like sometimes like it's so easy just to miss the point. So I'm actually looking, I should be on my couch. Larry, I'm looking for you to help save me from irrelevance. So one question I have, it's about your books. So your books are all about marketing. Books take a long time to write, and then marketing changes every 5 minutes. So I was just looking at like the description, let's say for the business case for caring, which is a book of yours. I didn't see what year that one was, but like now tying that into, let's say, remote working. Well, how do you know that 6 months after you launch a book that it's not going to change? Or even like the activation imperative, another one of your books, which looks at, what's current and tools for marketing. How do you know it should be a book and that it's actually going to last long enough to be a book when so much
basic
changes?
principles don't change. A lot of basic principles don't change. The activation imperative, how do you build brands and business at the same time? That's been a discussion in marketing from the very, very beginning. And so, do you do promotions to build immediate business, or do you invest in long-term brand building to have it over the long haul? And it's always been a debate. And they say one does want, we need to do promotional marketing, but that's going to destroy the brand. We need to do brand building, but that's, not going to build business. And you can do it both. And so that was the argument. And here's how. And how do you weave all these different platforms together? The platforms don't go away. We might have more. So the activation imperative is missing the whole platform of voice because it was written before that. But the idea of how you weave everything together doesn't go away. Audio branding, people respond to sound the same way from the very, very beginning. It's growing right now because there's more and more audio enabled devices.
Sure.
Your carry your phone around everywhere. So you have all these things on there that you use. You know, but so it's growing.
Well, what's interesting in that case too is that the idea might have been there for a while. There's been jingles, there's been sound, there's, you know, TVs might have, shows might have sounds or sign offs and things like that. But like you said, it's interesting that the concept has been there for a while, but now the technology has risen to meet it. And so it's kind of its time. And we had Colleen Fahey was on the show last week and talked to us all about sonic branding. I know the two of you have written a book about that. So well,
And
I
we're
have a,
working
oh,
on
sorry.
Colleen and I, plus 2 other people, are working on a book on voice. Now, audio branding came out before, you know, voice was as big as it is today. And it's you follow the trends, it's going to get bigger and bigger. So that's how to stay relevant, is you see what's growing and jump on the, you know, understand it at least, even if you don't, you know, I think the majority of the country hates Facebook. They think it's been bad for the country, but I still have to figure out how it works and why it works, right? And all that, and I'm on it. I don't post very often, if at all.
Does it come from curiosity? So is it seeing something and thinking like, "Huh, I haven't seen that before. Let me read more." Is it really that? I think I'm looking for like a silver bullet or a secret, but it really sounds like
Yeah,
there's nothing short of reading and learning.
yeah, I don't know if there's. I guess it's natural curiosity. It's what's going on in the world, and you got to be engaged in it.
My dad was a longtime ad agency owner. He had been like direct marketer of the year for the St. Louis Direct Mail Association. I was actually, I'm sorry, I don't have a picture to put, but I was Miss Direct Mail of 1969. And when I got my career started in advertising, but you know, he and I would talk. And what's interesting is a lot of things, like you talk about integrative marketing, which is this whole idea of layering different approaches to marketing. People have been doing it forever, but now there's a name for it. And I find a lot of that happens. So the concept is still the same. I do believe people still want to buy from either people they like or brands they like. There's still that personal connection that's really important. So it could also be not feeling like you're old fashioned if you're making a parallel to something that's been around for a while, realizing that that connects with today. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know, advertising and marketing, that what we do is we name things and we rename things and we rename things. And so, you know, there's a lot of that going on, but there is a growth of platforms. There's a growth of opportunities.
Yeah.
There's micro-targeting as opposed to mass marketing, whether that's healthy or not. You know, that's probably why people don't like Facebook is
Yeah,
the
sure.
targeting, and to micro-target, it has to be a little bit more extreme to get people to notice it. And that's causing a lot of issues right now. Because Facebook isn't controlling it, but still need to understand it.
So we had started this. The idea, again, when we look at intercultural spark, is how do people do the things that they do? How do people build their careers? And I'm also always interested in that idea of longevity, like how you just keep, you know, that life can be like a rocket. You're just constantly learning and doing more. So now going back to the writing part of what you do, I had heard a writer once say that they used to book when it was time to finish their book. They would purchase a round trip ticket to Japan. They would never leave the airport, but that was like 40 hours of time when they wouldn't be interrupted by internet to actually finish their book. So what's like one of the crazy places that you've written a book? It's the hospital. Hospital. Okay, go ahead. Just tell the hospital story. All right, go ahead.
I work in all sorts of places. I'm building up to that. I like writing in coffee shops. I like writing I've written on airplanes myself too. You know, it's good. Yeah, all these people who like to work on, you know, share documents online. I put it onto my laptop and turn that off, so it's more focused. I did go through a spell with a medical issue, and I was hospitalized, what was it, like 7 times in a year, emergency room hospitalizations, and I was working on a book, and you know, I was in the hospital hooked up to IVs, writing away, and had to read what I wrote afterwards to figure out what I wrote in the book, but we got it done. and I, there was a co-author. So again, collaboration. It was coherent and from the beginning. But you know, I guess that's the craziest place would be that. But I'm always thinking of how to write the next thing, and it is a collaboration. So people, you find the right partners, it works.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any tricks or tips for organization? I know for me, if an idea comes to my head, like sometimes, articles or something will come to my head fully formed. And if they don't get it right at that moment, they'll never come back. So I use a lot of voice to text. I send myself emails using voice to text where I just get that article out right then and there. Do you have any tips or tricks like that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I might be walking. People see me walking down and holding my phone all the time, and I'm literally dictating into it. Yeah, I have this nice little mumble and great melodic voice, so it doesn't always pick up. Voice is still in its infancy, not all the words. So it's kind of interesting to see what it thinks I'm saying. But yeah, I use it all the time to catch my ideas, because otherwise they're gone, and then I won't be able to. I have to go down the road of something else.
Do you have a good system for organizing them? Mine, I just
No.
always use no, you don't either. I use I just will actually say like e-news or blog, or like I'll use that in my subject line, so at least I can search through emails. But I know some people have like these elaborate ways, like this is the idea about such and such. Like,
No,
so you don't either. Yeah.
I understand the importance of naming conventions and stuff like that, but I don't follow them.
So you had told me a story about so look at all your awards. I know you've worked with huge. What are a couple of the brands you've worked with, like major brands that everyone's heard of? Like name a couple of them.
McDonald's, AARP,
Mhm.
Motorola, AT&T Wireless.
Yeah, so a lot of big ones. So what I'm getting at is clearly someone who's worthy of respect. And I know one time you were interviewed on a TV on a live show, and that was probably a huge honor. And the way you described it to me, it almost sounded like a scene from a sitcom. What happened on that interview?
I'm sitting here in my chair. We were waiting for this show to start, and I was having flashbacks to it. Like, is this chair going to all of a sudden they're putting me at an angle, and I have to grab on. It was one of my early books, and I was they saw the book and they wanted to interview me on the topic. So I went down. It was with my co-author and the person doing the interview, and they stick you on these really tall chairs so your feet don't touch the ground in order to balance everyone's heads out, which to make us all seem about equal for the camera. And you always, at least being young, I thought at least, it's television. They should have some nice chairs, right? They have money, so it should be good. But, they're old broken out chairs that they have. And my chair was at an angle. Literally, I was sliding off the chair with my feet off the ground, too high off the ground. So I couldn't balance myself like that. So I literally had to hold on to the chair.
Hold on for like dear life. Oh
to
my
hold me
goodness.
on. So because I kept sliding off the chair. So I don't remember anything I said during the interview. All I remember is having to hold on to the chair to do it. But I guess you improvise, and hopefully, having written the book that we were being interviewed by, or co-wrote the book, I knew enough of the topic that I could
That you could just do it off the top of your head.
do it
For
off the top
sure.
of my head.
For sure.
Really more focused on holding on for my dear life, so I didn't slide down. I can't even slide
really
down.
Funny. Well, actually, Larry, we are at that time. By the way, I just want to point out in terms of Laurence Minsky, and I'm calling you Larry. That's because on Amazon, I think there's another person named Larry, and so on Amazon you are Laurence Minsky. But to make it easy, if anybody wants to find all of Larry's books, you can actually just go to, and it is case sensitive, but the bit.ly Laurence Minsky with the capital L and the M. But that's why just the difference between Laurence and Larry, they'll find you as Laurence on Amazon. We are at that time of the show, my friend, for the Flash Photo Stories. All right. So that is the part of the show where you have sent me some photos ahead of time, and I'm going to flash them on the screen, and you're going to tell me like one or two sentences about each. So here we go. What's this in representative about,
one of
Larry?
the books I wrote that was a challenge was, how do you say everything you need to know about advertising that could in a book that could be read in under an hour? It's called Advertising Under an Hour. So that's why I chose the stopwatch. It's symbolic of that book.
And I caught that. That actually, so that was correct. I thought it was so you could execute in an hour, but you literally wrote it so that people could read it in an hour.
Yeah, you could read the book in an hour.
Amazing. What's this one?
I forgot why I specifically called it, but I am in academia, so we talk about we pretty much hit on the subject of it's a two-way street. I learn from my students as much as they learn from me.
And you teach marketing. Is it entrepreneurship as well, or mostly marketing?
I teach advertising more on the creative side, copywriting and strategy, but more the copy creative. I teach social media and some marketing, but more in social media.
Cool.
Yeah, three-legged stool. So this is how it all works together, right? You were asking, it's not three different careers, it's one career, but it's three areas of it. It's the book writing, the article writing, it's the teaching, and it's the consulting, and it all comes together.
Three-legged stool. And of course, as a good marketer, we always know people remember things in threes. So that's always good. And you got to love a marketer. When I'm like, give me pictures that will tell something about your life. And the marketer guest on the show sent me covers of all his books. But go ahead, Larry. Tell me what these are.
So a book on how to use sound for your branding. Branding is such a big, huge topic. But most of the conversation is all about visual branding, and everything you encounter with a brand contributes, or with a product or service, contributes to your perception of the brand, product, service. So you have to consider everything. You have to consider the sound. Food, you have to consider the taste appeal.
The smell. How about smell-o-vision?
Yes.
That one's always, every time I drive by, I know that's actually a thing, because whenever I drive by, there's a White Castle near us, and it always smells for 2 blocks around. You can smell the food. And I did read once that literally was something that was pumped out around the restaurant so that it draw you in.
Colleen and I, along with a third person, did an article for Harvard Business Review on scent. And that's a huge topic that we could spend a long time talking
so
about.
Much time, because scent can really put you right back into a moment in time, a lot more than everything else. What's this one, though?
So this is my first book, the second edition of my first book, so it's the closest. And I wrote it before the first edition, even before I got into advertising. It's what helped me get into advertising. How do you want to get into something? Write a book about it, research it. If you know enough about it to write a book about it.
So is that what you did? You researched how to succeed in advertising, wrote the book, and then said, okay, now I know I'm going to do it?
Yeah, the story behind it.
That's amazing.
I was in advertising. I was in an in-house agency, but I wanted to convert over to a mainstream agency. And I did get a small freelance project, and the account director there I was saying my frustrations with putting my portfolio together. The account director there wanted to do the same thing, and we started wondering about how these the big shots did it, and we said somebody should write a book about it. And my response is, well, we're somebody, why don't we? And that's what got me over from the small, in-house to the major agencies.
Well, I love that phrase. Just we're somebody, why not me? I mean, somebody's got to do it. Why not you? That's the thing to realize. Like, it's not there. It's a good idea. Someone's got to do it.
It's good ideas. And anytime you have that conversation, somebody should do this. Well, why not you?
That is a great way to do it. We're going to speed this up a teeny bit, because we are actually.
We could skip on that and speed it up even more then.
Skip this one? Okay.
Yeah, sure. It's a great book. Go read it.
Okay. Global Brand Management.
This is the one for the hospital that I wrote a lot in the hospital. So we already talked about that.
Okay. And that's it. So guess what time it is then? Sorry if that was it, right? Well, there's 8 of them all together. You can always look at you can always actually look at all of Larry's books on Amazon right there. And now it is time for it is time for our flash exercise. So this, Larry, is something we do every week. It is an exercise because I'm also a certified fitness instructor. This is an exercise that I invite people to do at their desk. I'm going to invite you to do it with me, and then I'm going to let you guess because there's a little known genre called interpretive aerobics. So I'm going to let you guess why I chose this particular exercise for our show. I'm going to make me full screen for just a minute. By the way, I don't always do this. Excuse me. I brought weights today. You do not need weights to do this exercise, okay? But if you have them, you can. So for this exercise, ow, but don't drop the weight on your knee if you are using weights. Okay, so for this exercise, you're going to put the weights in your hand and you're going to put your arms straight out in front of you. So from the side, you got a straight arm, and actually without bending your wrist, it's a curl. I'll do one without a weight and one with, so you can see what I'm talking about. So it's a curl and a straight, and a curl and a straight. So your arm stays straight, and you bend. Are you going to do it with me, Larry? Let me see your hands. You bend and up. Yes. So you come all the way down. This is a flexion. It's extension and flexion with your wrist. So that is our exercise for today. Why do you think I chose that exercise?
Because you need limber wrists for writing.
Absolutely, positively. So because of that, you absolutely have it. You need limber wrists, and this is a really good like carpal tunnel prevention exercise. But the other reason I thought is that, by yourself, okay, here we go. You ready for the interpretation? By yourself, look at that. I can only lift my wrist, but then you get people to help you. Oh my gosh, and you can get the full arm. So that shows that by yourself, we're not necessarily as strong as if we do things together. Like you collaborating on all your books. So, Larry, thank you so much. Flash all your awards again, just so we can see those as we're saying goodbye. Look at that. We'll have to actually next time we can just go through each one because that's amazing.
I work in an industry that likes to congratulate itself. So,
it's true, because we're marketers, right?
Yes.
Because wait, if you do something and you don't tell anyone about it, did it really happen? Like
exactly.
that?
Exactly.
Oh, well, fantastic. Larry, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thank you for people who watched, who joined us live, and for those after the fact. Really appreciate your joining us. And of course, you can always subscribe to Intercultural Talks on YouTube to get advance notice of shows, which are every Thursday at noon. So thank you, Larry. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Sure.